Mary, Queen of Scots. Crowned before she could walk, betrayed by love and hunted by her own blood. Mary, Queen of Scots, is walked into a great hall hung entirely in black cloth. Armed guards close in around her, silent and grim. A trembling hand ties a blindfold tight over her eyes. She kneels before the block. Calm, without a single tear falling, she grips a small ivory rosary and begins to pray in complete silence. Around her, the entire hall holds its breath, waiting for the end. Then it happens. Witnesses flinch and turn away, unable to watch the terrible moment unfolding just feet before them. One by one, the witnesses bow their heads. Somewhere above them, a heavy bell begins its slow, mournful toll. A single white handkerchief lies forgotten on the stone floor. Outside the window, crows scatter into a grey and silent sky. 6 days old, she becomes Queen of Scotland after her father's sudden death in 1542, leaving regents to rule in her name. At 9 months old, she is crowned at Stirling Castle in a solemn ceremony. Asleep in her cradle, an infant already rules a kingdom. England's king demands the baby queen for his son, and Scotland refuses. Years of brutal border war follow, burning towns across the land. To keep her safe, her mother sends 5-year-old Mary across the sea to France, as English ships hunt the fleet through storms. She arrives at the dazzling French court, a small Scottish girl among silk and gold. King Henry II welcomes her warmly. She grows up beside the young Dauphin, Francis, her future husband and closest friend. Together they are raised as the golden children of France. Tutored by the finest minds in Europe, she masters languages, poetry, and horsemanship. Renaissance. France shapes her into a princess unlike any other. By her teenage years, poets call her the most accomplished beauty in Europe. The Scottish girl has become the toast of the French court. At 16, she marries the Dauphin Francis in a lavish wedding at Notre Dame, and France celebrates its future king and queen. Then tragedy strikes the throne itself. King Henry II is fatally wounded in a jousting accident, a splintered lance piercing his eye. Within the year, young Francis takes the throne, and Mary is crowned Queen of France at 16. Her power has never been greater. But Francis has always been a sickly boy, plagued by fevers since childhood. Beneath the glittering court, his health is quietly beginning to fail. His fever grows worse by the day, and physicians can do nothing to save him. The whispers grow louder. The young king is dying. In December 1560, Francis dies, leaving Mary a widow at just 18. French tradition dresses her in white, naming her the White Queen. With Francis gone, power passes to Catherine de' Medici, France's formidable queen mother, and Mary no longer belongs at court. Grieving and alone, she chooses to sail home to Scotland, a land she barely remembers, watching the French coastline slowly disappear behind her. After 13 years away, Mary lands on Scottish shores in a thick August fog, greeted not by celebration, but by a country divided by faith. Where France offered gold and splendor, Edinburgh greets her with grey stone and a suspicious, deeply Protestant nobility. The fiery preacher, John Knox, condemns her Catholic Mass from the pulpit, warning that one Mass frightens him more than an invading army. Summoned to face him directly, Mary defends her right to worship as she chooses, but Knox refuses to soften his fury. Despite the opposition, Mary holds her ground, slowly winning over lords who expected a weak and foreign queen. Then, at a court gathering, she meets a tall young English lord named Henry Darnley, and something in his charm catches her attention. Darnley courts her with charm and gifts, and Mary falls for him quickly. But Scotland's wary lords watch this romance with growing suspicion. When she announces her choice to marry him, her own half-brother storms out in fury, refusing to accept an English lord as king. In July 1565, Mary marries Darnley in a small, hurried ceremony, far from the grandeur France once gave her. But Darnley wants more than a husband's title. He demands equal power as king, and Mary refuses to share her crown. Her secretary, David Rizzio, becomes her closest confidant, sharing music and laughter late into the night. Darnley watches, jealousy curdling into rage. In secret, Darnley joins a group of Scottish lords plotting against Rizzio, signing a bond sealed in candlelight and silence. On a March evening in 1566, heavily pregnant, Mary shares a quiet supper with Rizzio and her closest ladies. Suddenly, armed men burst through the door. Darnley seizes her wrists as Rizzio is dragged screaming from the room forever. Left alone in the wreckage of her own chamber, Mary stands in silent shock, one hand pressed protectively over her unborn child. Months later, in June 1566, she gives birth to a son, James, an heir who will one day rule both Scotland and England. Under cover of darkness, Mary slips past sleeping guards, pulling a frightened Darnley through a hidden passage. They race through the night toward Dunbar, desperate to escape before the conspirators strike again. Days later, she returns to Edinburgh at the head of a loyal army, and the very lords who plotted murder now flee or kneel. The Queen has reclaimed her city. Back at court, her marriage grows cold and silent, while a rugged border lord named Bothwell begins to win her trust, and perhaps far more. He rides out to crush lawless raiders terrorizing the frontier, proving his loyalty in blood and steel. Mary watches him return victorious, and something in her gaze begins to change. Darnley falls gravely ill, his body racked with fever and disease. Abandoned by the court, bitter and isolated, he becomes a dangerous liability to everyone around him. In secret, Bothwell gathers a circle of lords by candlelight, and together they sign a deadly bond. Darnley, they agree, must be removed. Mary visits her sick husband and brings him to a quiet house called Kirk o' Field. To everyone, it looks like a loving reconciliation. On February 9th, she attends a celebration at Holyrood. Then she rides through torchlight for one last visit before returning home alone. Just after 2 in the morning, an explosion rips through Kirk o' Field. The house collapses into rubble, lighting up the night sky. In the frozen garden nearby, searchers find Darnley's body lying beneath the trees. Whispers spread fast. This was no accident. By dawn, a placard appears at the market, cross-naming Bothwell as the killer. Edinburgh erupts in fury, and suspicion falls on Mary, too. Weeks later, Bothwell and his riders intercept her on the open road. He seizes control and leads her away by force. Weeks later, Mary marries Bothwell in a rushed, joyless ceremony. Almost no nobles attend, and scandal spreads fast through Scotland. Furious lords rise against her under a banner accusing her of murder. Civil war grips Scotland again, this time against its own queen. At Carbery Hill, her soldiers melt away without a single blow. Abandoned by her army, Mary is taken prisoner by the rebel lords. Locked away on a remote island, she is forced to sign away her crown. Her infant son becomes king in her place. Nearly a year later, a teenage boy smuggles her across the loch by night, risking his own life for her freedom. She raises one last army, but at Langside it collapses within minutes. Mary watches her final hope for Scotland fall apart. With nothing left, Mary flees into England, hoping her cousin Elizabeth will help. Instead, she becomes a prisoner in a foreign land. For 18 years, she's moved between castles under constant watch. She fills the days with needlework, prayer, and hidden letters. In 1586, Elizabeth's spymaster decodes her secret letters, uncovering a plot to kill the English queen and crown Mary instead. Put on trial at Fotheringhay, Mary defends herself with fierce dignity. The court finds her guilty. Death is the only sentence. On February 8th, 1587, Mary is led into a hall draped entirely in black. This time, there is no return. A trembling hand ties the blindfold over her eyes one last time. She kneels calmly, showing no fear, no tears. She grips her rosary and prays in silence. Around her, English officials hold their breath, waiting for the end. Witnesses, standing close together, flinch and turn away, blocking the terrible sight. History remembers this moment only through their reactions. One by one, the witnesses bow their heads. Somewhere above them, a heavy bell begins its slow, mournful toll. A single white handkerchief falls to the stone floor. Outside, crows scatter into a cold February sky. When news reaches Elizabeth, she weeps and claims she never meant for it to happen, though her own signature ordered it. Across Europe, Catholic courts call Mary a martyr. In France and Spain, her death becomes a rallying cry against England. Years later, her son James inherits not only the Scottish crown, but England's throne as well, uniting both kingdoms Mary never could.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more of history's darkest, greatest legends. Like this video and ring the bell for new episodes.